What is up, guys? It is Friday. I'm so glad. I woke up this morning just like instantly excited because I knew it was Friday. We had a late night, like a couple nights this week. We had like a late night with our daughter. She's like getting older and she's just more busybody and wants to be up later. So we had kind of a late night last night. And I was just so exhausted this morning. I'm sure my wife is probably more tired than I am, but I just woke up and, like, the first thing I thought was, like, "Thank God it is Friday." Just it's feels good going into the weekend. We have a busy weekend, but, it's gonna be good. I'm excited, and, I'm grateful, can't complain about that. I feel like well, first off, a couple of reasons to be, like, thankful and grateful is I had my first Father's Day this weekend, which was amazing. It was a blessing. I had a great weekend. First weekend with my daughter being here, and got to spend it with my wife. This was both our first Mother's and Father's Day as parents, so just really grateful. Had an awesome weekend. Got to go to church, had brunch, hung out with our some of our best friends. It was great, and I've really felt God like having a presence in my life even more for the last 7, 8 months. And I think it helps, like, understanding that, you don't always, like, feel God working. Sometimes it's, like, months later or, weeks later, or sometimes it's, like, you can feel him in the moment, but you don't always feel that. And I think that's been, like, the best part of, like, my faith growing is understanding that because you don't rely on how you feel each day and, like, how strong your faith feels that day, because sometimes it's gonna feel tired, and you're gonna wake up and, um it's gonna feel stronger today than it was yesterday, or not as strong today as it did the day before. And so I have a lot of gratitude the last little bit about just work, my family, life in general, and being grateful for the things that I do have and the things that I own and that I have in this life is really powerful. And it's been cool to, like, feel that and, like, kind of grasp it. And me and my wife always joke because, like, when you're 25, they say your brain, like, fully develops, you know? And, I, like, totally feel that. Partnered with, like I'm 27, so partnered with, like, being 2 years, almost 3 years removed from being 25. I'm almost 28, and having a child, I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I feel like I can feel everything now, and, sometimes it's stressful. It's, like, too much. But yeah, I'm just, a lot of gratitude recently, and, being a dad is just amazing. Our daughter is almost a year old. Next month, she'll be a year old on July 20th, which is just mind-blowing. It's just, like, mind-boggling. I feel like we were just like, Kevin and I were just doing a podcast talking about how my daughter was about to be born and his daughter had just been born. So yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, today's episode, it's a solo episode with just me, and it's a really cool topic because this, like, applies to any aspect of your life. So today will be a nice quick hit. Hopefully it's easy to digest, find some value from it, and you can walk away being like, you know what, let's do it. Let's just go for it. Let's just do the dang thing. So today, it's a little bit different, but, again, it's very broad, so I think that I know that anybody can apply this topic to their life, and again, hopefully you just find some value out of this. So today, we're gonna talk about the power of going for it, and, already based off of that, you can probably think of something, right? Like, what is something that you've wanted to do, that you wanna go for, maybe scares you, you don't feel like it's the right time, financially, whatever it may be. We all love the idea of doing something specific. Taking a new job, moving to a different state, running your first marathon or 5K. There's a lot of things. And so that's why I say that topic is so broad, because I've felt that before whenever I first, and I'll get into this, when I first switched jobs, when I had my first full-time job and I was in that role for almost 3 years, and then I left that job. And then after that, I left that job to come here at Movewell, and that was scary. And running races and getting into running, like, all that stuff is scary and it's intimidating. It makes you uncomfortable, but there's so much on the other side of that. And that's what we're going to dive into today, and kind of give you some examples of what I've been through and see how that can resonate with you. So, out of all those things I mentioned, taking a new job, moving to a new state, running your first marathon, whatever it is, how many of those things do we actually go for? Like, we love the idea of those things. We like the idea of being successful or doing something challenging, but how many of those things do we actually do? How many of those things do we actually go for? And it's scary, I know, but doing something that scares you is so powerful. Anybody that's done something scary or that's made them uncomfortable, that feeling. And I really have felt that from physical challenges more than anything else. Running, ultras, running my first 100-mile race, last man standing races, those types of events, I can pull a lot of value out of that applies to multiple facets of my life. So even though it's a physical event, it's a race, it shapes me as a man, as a husband, as a dad now, and just as an individual and in a lot of areas of my life, discipline, all that stuff. And what's funny is, like, when you do these big races, I've talked about it before, your perspective of what's hard changes significantly. And you do, like, you're out on the trails. I was out on the trails for 23 hours in North Georgia. And when I came back home, the next week or 2 weeks, nothing really felt like really challenging to me, because I knew what challenging felt like because I just ran for 23 hours straight on the trails in Georgia. So yeah, your perspective is going to change when you do these things too. You're going to find that your mind is going to grow and shape in a positive way. It's going to make you stronger. It's going to make you tougher because you're choosing to put yourself in a situation that maybe is uncomfortable. That's not the norm, what your body and mind is used to. So a really great quote that we actually have here in our office on the whiteboard in the back is, almost every meaningful decision you make has risk on the other side of it. And that seems kind of cliche, but it's a really nice reminder whenever you're doing something that's challenging or whenever you are trying something new or when you're scared or you're trying to think through, is it the right decision? I feel kind of uneasy about it. Am I sure I'm doing the right thing? You remember, almost every meaningful decision you make has risk on the other side of it. And that is so true. In last week's episode, Kevin and I talked about how he acquired the business of MoveWell and how he's the new CEO and majority owner of the business. And he's had that quote on the board for over a year. And so throughout the process, we see that every day. And I'm sure that he resonated with that because he realizes buying a business is scary. And I know this decision comes with some vulnerability, financially, physically, everything. I mean, a lot of your means are in a vulnerable state. And he knew that making that decision had a lot of risk on the other side of it. And so him being okay with that and understanding that and grasping that this could go one way or the other almost provides a sense of comfort because you know that in doing what I feel called to do by God, um, there's going to be risk. I'm going to feel the risk. I'm going to feel the intimidation of that. And so I think that's why that quote is so great because it's a constant reminder of that every human experiences that on the other side of a meaningful decision is going to be risk. You're going to feel the repercussions of that. Um, and there have been a lot of times in all of our lives that we went for it, quote unquote, went for it. So in other words, did something that you wanted to do that you were like, you know what, forget it. Let's just do it. Let's go for it. And through that, it was probably a risky decision. But at that time, maybe we didn't realize it was a risky decision because at that moment, maybe it was that moment in time, whatever it was, you were feeling just like, you know what, I have nothing to lose. Let's go for it. But what I found is that a lot of those moments for myself, I feel like I was in between the ages of like 17 and 24. And I made the comment earlier about, your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25 years old. So I think being in that age range, um, what I know now is that I was just really naive. And you don't really like fear then or risk then is not processed the same now in my brain as it was then. But I think that was a blessing and that was really powerful for me because at the age of 17, I graduated high school at a younger age. I was 17. So when I started college, I was 17 years old. I was very naive, and I kind of just like went through most of the 4 years. It's just kind of like, all right, let's just kind of scrape by and just hustle through, and I'm just gonna do whatever I have to do and not think twice about it. Like whatever I have to do to graduate is what I'm gonna do, and whatever I have to do to set myself up to be in the best position possible to get a job after college. Like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. So at 17, I'm like, I had a little bit of financial aid grant help, but I had to rely on a lot of student loans, and so I'm figuring that out myself. I had no medical insurance at the time. I'm like trying to figure out how do I get medical insurance as a 17-year-old, and so I'm trying to figure out how to do that, how to get these loans to cover all of my tuition, set up my meal plans, and then I was also on the cheer team, so I'm like trying to navigate school on top of a social life, and then also an income because I was like, I have no income, no money coming in, and I did not want to take out more loans than I needed, and I physically could not because at the time when I was in school, you could only take out, I don't remember what the exact number was, but you can only take out X amount of dollars per year until you have been in school for a first year in a good academic standing. So let's just say I needed $20,000 for that year, and financial aid from a loan standpoint would only loan me up to $17,000 or whatever it was. So I had to kind of scrape and just figure out, okay, where am I going to make up this $3,000 difference? Until I've been in good financial or good academic standing for a year. And then after my freshman year in school, I was able to get as much loan money as I needed. But going back to what I was saying, I didn't want to take out more loans than I needed to have as like spending money, if that makes sense. So I didn't want to take out $20,000 for school and then take out an extra 5,000 to have as spending money. Like I did not want to do that because I think at that age, I knowing what I know now, I probably would have taken out more money to help pay for other expenses. But at that time, I was like, I'll figure it out. And I think it was a blessing because I could have got myself in like a pretty tough situation. So being so naive at that age, I found out how to make up that extra money I needed to pay for my school. I got a job at a local cheerleading gym, and then I worked at American Eagle in retail, which was terrible, hated it. And then finally I secured a job the beginning of my sophomore year in college as a pharmacy technician, which was an amazing job. I held that until even after I graduated college, as a part-time role. So like I was so naive at that age, but I was so hungry to just make it work. And I think it was a blessing for me. And I didn't going through those, I never really had that feeling of like, all right, this is a really big risk what I'm doing here. Like it was just kind of like, I'm just going to do whatever I have to do to finish school. So I think that as we get older, everybody can probably understand and agree that like risky decisions or doing something that scares you just has a different meaning because what is scary to us now, what's a risky decision now was not 10 years ago. I'm 27. When I was 17, some of the things I do now, I would have never even thought twice about. I would have been like, "Yep, let's do it. Like, let's go for it." And as I've gotten older, I feel the intimidation of these situations a lot more. I feel the anxiety. I feel the scared part of me, the scared parts of me come alive, and my body and my mind recognize that, um, and I have to learn how to deal with that in a different way now. Instead of just like immediately signing off on the green light and being like, yeah, let's do it. Like it's different now. And I have other things to consider too. But every time I do something now that makes me uncomfortable or make a risky decision, I learn from it in some capacity. And so although I'm thinking through these decisions a lot more as I get older, I understand that on the other side of those is a learning experience, whether it turns out the way I thought it would or not. And I'll talk through a few of these decisions um, that I made as I got older revolved around my professional career. So I mentioned when I graduated college, I was a sport management major from my undergrad, and then I got my master's in sport administration. I thought I was going to work in college sports forever. And that was initially the dream was like, I'm going to work in college sports. I want to eventually be an associate athletic director and maybe even like an athletic director at like a D1 institution eventually. And so I graduated college at 21. 3 months later, got my first full-time job at Western Kentucky University. I was assistant director of marketing in the athletic department. So I oversaw women's basketball, volleyball, and baseball. So essentially I would produce game days. So when you go to a college sporting event as a fan and you hear the music and there's halftime entertainment, there's promotions on the court or on the field, there's giveaways at gates, all those things. There's PA announcements, sponsorship reads. That is what I did. And again, that's what I thought I was going to do forever. Like I love the job, and still to this day, it's one of the most fun jobs I've had. But um, around the time of COVID, I realized that there's a lot more to life on the weekends and on weeknights than hosting sporting events and being on campus all day long. And again, although I loved the job at the time, like my now wife and I were engaged. We knew we wanted to have a family down the road. And when COVID hit, it was just kind of this eye opener for me of like, okay, the longevity of this does not seem sustainable. And I kind of was getting burnt out. And so, I made the decision to leave this job. And there was a really like glamorous job. I feel like there's a lot of like, not people, but the job itself. It's easy to have like ego tied to it because you have these so many perks of being around these like student athletes that eventually can go pro. You have access to tickets to sporting events, to other people, other figures, and it's really easy to get like the egotistical part of you tied to that. And I struggle with it a little bit, especially being young and having to really like hustle for that job. And college sports has such a hustle culture that it's easy to get tied into that. And so the decision to leave that job was really scary, really risky, because I knew that eventually there would be a job come open at a larger D1 institution that I could, move up and eventually get to the point that I wanted to be as an associate athletic director level. And probably by now at this point, at this point, I would have had 8 years of experience in the field or 7 years of experience in the field. And thinking about that, I'm still so happy with the decision I made. And so leaving that job and taking a corporate role, I eventually went to the company Spalding, the basketball brand. They make sporting goods, and so I was on the product development, product marketing team at Spalding. A very corporate role, very different from my college athletics job. It's very much of a 9 to 5. You show up at 8 or 9, and you don't leave until 4 or 5. It's not okay. The job's done for the day. You go home. Like it was not that. And there was very much more of that environment when I was working in college sports, especially over the summer, because that's kind of the only downtime you get. Whereas in this role at Spalding, it's a lot more corporate. So Fruit of the Loom owns Spalding, and it was just a lot more of a corporate setting. It was a great job. I love my job. It was a lot slower paced in the first couple of months. I really appreciated that. And then about 7 or 8 months in, I kind of realized that, okay, I'm a very busybody, and I needed more of that busybody work. And I started working with travel ball, and I was traveling more of the summers to AAU tournaments. I was going to cool places. I was going to Phoenix. I was going to Colorado. I was going to Texas. I was going to Maine, Maryland, really cool places. Um, but I still just wasn't like super fulfilled. And around that time was when I was at Spalding, I really started to get into running. In like a more serious way in terms of like distances and the logistics of running, like not just running local 5Ks or half marathons. And so I kind of started getting into social media and like sharing my journey and connecting with other people in the fitness realm. And so at that point, when I was a couple months into my job at Spalding, I bought my first camera. I bought a Canon EOS RP, and I still have that camera. I use it for all my photography stuff. And I remember I bought that camera with the intention of documenting my fitness journey from YouTube, like long format, and then just creating cool content to post on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, all that stuff. And that decision ultimately like changed my life forever. Because I bought the camera, I did a Best Buy credit card because at the time I was like, I don't really want to spend this much money on a camera. So I opened a Best Buy credit card, and now obviously I've paid that camera off. But that was, again, ultimately like the decision that changed my life forever, because I would never have ended up here sitting at this table, would never be recording this podcast had I never made that decision to buy that camera and just start documenting. And so now, and I'll talk about kind of how I got to this point because of buying that camera. But because of doing that, I've developed a passion and a love for creating content, for photography, especially. I love shooting photos. And it's such a creative space where you can like teach yourself a lot, but you can also learn a lot from other individuals. It's so powerful. So I bought that camera in January of 2022, and started documenting my journey very slowly and trying to figure out, how does this camera work? Like, what do I do? What do I do? And so, yeah, I started posting just on Instagram. I started making YouTube videos and sharing those, and started developing like a very small following, but mainly and most importantly, connecting with other people through social media. And got connected with a lot of people that were running. They were doing, Ironmans, lifting, weightlifting, all that stuff, and then just like to share their journey as well. And so about 7 or 8 months into documenting my journey and getting this camera, I connected with Kevin, who's now the CEO here at MoveWell, and he just asked to go on a run. We went out on a run. He was basically telling me, I follow your stuff. I see your YouTube videos. I see your Instagram. Like, I love, how genuine you are and authentic you are with your content. Like, I feel like when I watch your stuff or read your post, whatever it is, like, I feel like I'm getting the real you, which has always been my intention, and it's really hard to do. Um, but I felt really, that's like one of the first moments that I was like, wow, like that feels really good to hear. And I realized that the content that I'm making is impacting people. And I realized that I needed to take it more seriously, to pursue it a little bit more, and hear Kevin out. So Kevin had basically told me, like, I follow your journey. I love the content you're putting out. And then basically just told me, keep it up. Well, a couple months later, I find out that was kind of him just filling me out, because he kind of called me out of the blue and was like, do you know anybody, or would you ever consider like coming to run the marketing here at MoveWell? And I was like, well, what would it entail? So we had a couple conversations, and I kind of was just told him, I was fully transparent. Like, all my content I've done is self-taught. I went to school for sport management, and all I've known is sporting goods marketing, fan engagement, community involvement, that type of stuff. And he said, that's totally fine. I like the stuff you do now, and this is a place where you can grow because we're growing. And so after multiple conversations about that, Kevin and I came to an agreement, and he offered me the job. And that was December of 2022, and I've been here since then. So going on, a year and a half of being in this role. And that would have never happened had I not bought my camera and just started documenting my life and sharing it with the world. And that's a scary thing to do. I kind of just like blew past that in a very nonchalant way, but it was a scary thing for me to do. And it still is, because social media, like, there are a lot of good things about it, but a lot of cruel things about it too, in terms of people and the things they say. And people can mask their identity and say things about you or about other people. And it can be scary. So I want to note that doing that, I understand, is a hard thing to do, to decide to like document your life and share it. And that's one thing that we're doing right now at MoveWell. I'm currently doing a YouTube series, the Wade Weatherholt, our COO, and documenting his life and his journey in Ironman training. And that's something he is totally not used to at all. So understanding that that's a difficult thing to do is worth noting. And if I had not done that, I wouldn't be right here right now talking on this podcast, sitting at this table, or being in this role. And Wade's going through it right now, and he has adapted to it tremendously. And if you haven't checked out that series, I highly recommend it. It's just called Dad Trains for an Ironman, The Road to Ironman Louisville. It's on our MoveWell YouTube channel. So Wade is doing an amazing job. And we just dropped episode 6 this week, so we've got plenty more coming. So I just want to make a quick plug there. But yeah, now I love creating content, and it's led me to some amazing opportunities, even outside of MoveWell, and capturing content of other individuals and other companies, other brands. And I'm still scaling from here. So I think just realizing, like, if I would have never gone for that and just went for it, I don't know if I still would be in like that corporate role I was, but I would not be here at MoveWell, obviously, because that's exactly what led me here. So next, kind of talking from a physical standpoint, I kind of talked about running a little bit, but just to kind of hammer on that a little bit more, running has taught me a lot. It's taught me so much about my character, about what my limitations are, what I'm capable of, which is much more than I ever thought physically and mentally. And my journey with running pretty much went from 0 to 100 in the matter of like a year. So I signed up for my first half marathon, November of 2019. It was the Bowling Green Half Marathon here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I ran the 13.1 with my mother-in-law. She's the one that kind of pushed me to sign up. And I ran it in like an hour and 52 minutes. And I remember at the very end of it, I was like, I still have some in the tank. And so the next day, or it was the day that the marathon registration opened for the following year for 2020, opened up, I signed up for the full marathon. And as we all know, COVID happened. So I ran that marathon virtually, and it was my first marathon ever. And I had the goal of going under 3 hours, breaking 3 hours. And I ended up running 3 hours, 5 minutes, and 17 seconds. But it was a virtual marathon. It was all races were pretty much canceled that year. And pretty much from that moment on, I was like, okay, this is really hard, but I know how much I can get from this, from not just race day, but the training too. And so from there, I found the organization called MS Run the US, which I'm still involved in, and it's a relay across America, help raise awareness for multiple sclerosis. And getting involved with that organization was just so powerful because I got to fundraise. At this point, I fundraised like almost $15,000 for the organization. But along with that, which is the most important part of being a part of the organization, but along with that, it's a relay across America. So there's 19 of us runners, and we break up into 19 segments. And it starts in Santa Monica, California, and it goes to New York City. And so I did it in 2021 and 2022. I ran segment number 15 from Valparaiso, Indiana to Van Wert, Ohio. It was 141 miles over the course of 5 days, and it was just a really powerful experience. You live on an RV for 5 days. You wake up every day. And your only responsibility is to run and eat and drink, essentially. Run and fuel your body, and you have a crew that takes care of you. They cook all your meals. They take care of you. They're checking in every couple of miles, and it was just it was a really powerful experience and just an amazing organization. So I highly just encourage you to check out MS Run the US. They're an awesome organization. And after that, through that process, I found a passion and a love for ultra marathons, ultra running, which essentially is any distance on foot over a marathon. So anything more than 26.2 miles is considered an ultra marathon. And through that, I kind of found my love for ultra running, and takes me back to if I would have never went for it and just signed up for that first half marathon, like I would have never been where I'm at now with my running journey. Because chances are, yeah, I may have ran a half marathon by now, or maybe even a full marathon, but it would not have happened the way it did, which led me to my current journey. It would have been after COVID had already happened. And it probably would not have introduced me to MS Run the US, which in turn not have introduced me to ultra running. And yeah, who knows? And ultra running is really what kind of like pushed me to go about documenting my journey. So in turn, maybe would not even have been in this job that I'm in now and doing this podcast right now. So what happens when you go for it? When you do something that you're feeling called to do, but maybe you're scared to do? I can't give you the answer to that because the outcome only you will experience. But what you learn through that, I can kind of tap into, and what you might feel from that, I can kind of tap into. So what I can tell you is that you will empower yourself. You will learn new things about yourself. You will grow, and you will gain a lot of confidence. And although it may not, like I said earlier, it may not turn out the way you envisioned it whenever you take that risk or you make that decision or you go for it. Excuse me. If your initial goal was to run a marathon in 3 hours, but you were just scared to run a marathon and maybe you bonked and you ran it in 4 hours. What you will learn through that process is that you're going to gain a lot of confidence in yourself because you finished and you were able to do something that scared the crap out of you 7 months ago or whenever it was. You're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to learn how your mind works, how your body works in a difficult situation, and how you handle it. Did you quit or did you go for it? Did you continue pushing even though you knew you were well off your goal? And that's what you will experience, is that the outcome may be totally different than what you initially envisioned, but you will gain a lot out of it as a human, and you'll learn that you're capable of a lot more than you thought you were. You're going to empower yourself a lot more. You're gonna want to learn. You're gonna want to tap into more of what your capabilities and your limitations are, from choosing to do something like that. Whether it's taking a new job, because leaving my first job at WKU in college sports and going into that really corporate role set me up for the next move into taking this job here at MoveWell, which is essentially a job that I knew I wanted to be in eventually, but the opportunity presented itself so much more. So understanding that, going for that first move out of that first role, although it was scary, it set me up to be where I'm at right now. And understanding that although it may not look the same as you envisioned it, you're getting a lot out of that situation, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's financial, whether it's a job. The only way that you will experience that is by going for it. And you can hear me talk about it, you can hear other people talk about it, but you won't truly know unless you experience it yourself. And I suggest starting with, something that scares you, but maybe is smaller, like signing up for a race. If you want to do an Ironman, if you want to do a weightlifting competition, if you want to run a 5K, those types of things, that is the best way to start, is by doing a physical challenge, because it's going to empower you to do other things and take other risks and attempt other things. And so going for it yourself and experiencing yourself is the best and most practical and logical way to learn, um, how powerful it is to go for it and what you will gain out of that. So that's kind of my take and my experience on what it means to go for it, and what it means to take a risk and understand that, on the other side of a meaningful decision comes risk. Just like that quote that we have on our whiteboard here in the office. And yeah, Sergio just wrote on the live stream, signing up for a 100-miler right off the bat. Yeah, sign up for a 100-miler. Don't take his advice. Or do it. That's kind of what Sergio did. He just kind of went for it, dove right into ultras. But yeah, so I hope that, one, you gain some value out of this, you gain some inspiration out of this. And if you're thinking about signing up for that 100-miler, Sergio, if you're thinking about signing up for a race, if you're thinking about entertaining another job, that is something that will empower you, that is where you want to be one day, whatever it is, like let this be the moment, let this be the reminder, let this be the push that you need to do that. Because once you do it one time, it's an addiction, because you realize, like, risk is kind of risk is really beneficial whenever on the other side of it is growth, on the other side of it is empowerment. Even if there's, quote unquote failures along the way or learning opportunities along the way, which I've experienced in every decision I've made that's risky or that scares me. I've experienced those, what feels like failures, but really, just a learning opportunity. So again, I hope this inspires you. I hope it encourages you to keep going. I hope you resonate with it in some way. And if you do, if you've experienced that, leave a comment on the podcast, leave a comment on the live stream or on the YouTube video, however you're watching or listening. Let me know. Let me know what your next decision is. What's something you've done and how you've grown from it that scared you in the beginning. And just go for it, man. Just do it. So thanks for tuning in for another episode. Thanks for listening to another episode of Adapt and Achieve. If you're watching on the live stream, thank you. If you're listening on audio platforms, thank you just as much. We'll catch you next time.